let me share my screen first. So, all right, is everything up here? You'll continue.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess I should probably start by talking about like what a supersaw is. So like basically, it's like they call it a supersaw in the first place because you use a saw wave, which looks like something. You use this shape basically, which is called or referred to like a saw wave, and you add a bunch of voices to it or unison, and it makes like this big, huge wall of sound. And a lot of people, well, electronic kind of music has like at least some, implementation and like this sound all over, mostly in their drops, maybe sometimes in their beginnings. And as like a quick example, it usually sounds something like this. And you kind of do hear it all around. A lot, I hear it a lot in like future bass, for example. And I think
Miro,
overall it's a really
it might be useful to undetach the Serum plugin.
Oh wait,
It's sort of like flickering between Serum and
okay.
your FL.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how to fix that though.
It's I need to use a 32-bit. So here. So.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
I'm not sure, but I was experimenting.
Typically, it's like if the plugin's detached, it'll do that weirdness. But
yeah, but it's working fine now. So
yeah. Like for some reason, like the 32-bit version doesn't really flicker, and it's like should be fine. So I'm just gonna be using 32-bit version for right now to just like help explain. So yeah, for like yeah, and I'll just play like a little snippet of like what I made here. Just kind of like give you like an example of what supersaw can be used or like utilized for. So it's gonna be like the main thing or like the main kind of sound on the side. So I'm gonna give like a quick play here. Yeah, and if I wanted to be more specific, I could just kind of like solo it, and it'll kind of be like this kind of sound. Yeah, and it kind of like tries to like fill up the sound and like try to it's kind of like used to give contrast between when there's no sound and when there is sound. So that's kind of like I think one of the main reasons a lot of people use it. So right now I'm gonna give like a quick tutorial on how to make one using Serum, and after that I'll give like other kind of tips to make your supersaw to sound like a lot more full. So we're gonna start off by, I'm gonna try to get it. So this is like the initial preset that you get, or like the initial kind of page that you get when you first start up Serum. So we're gonna first try to go to the basic shapes wavetable, and after you get this, you're gonna see like this sine wave right here. So from here, you want to use the wavetable position and try to move it around until you see this shape, and you just copy what you did here onto the second wavetable that we're gonna get, and here, and that's kind of like your first step of making this basic supersaw. And for the next stage, you want to up the unison, which is kind of like the voices. So you're just going to have like multiple kind of like the saw waves play, but like in different positions. And like this is kind of like the main factor of making it a lot like full and a lot like big, like have like this big wall of sound in a sense. So I usually put it up to 8 unison. Now this can be like a little bit taxing or like a lot for your CPU. So if you don't really have too much power, I recommend you using 6 and stuff, 6 voices, 6 unison as like, well, 6 voices or unison in a sense. And I would do the same thing for the second one. Okay. Oh, and if any of y'all have like a question, just like shout it out, because I'm like I can't really see the Discord chat, and so just like say something out loud, and I'll try to answer as quickly.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious, like, what it sounds like throughout the process. So, like, what would it sound like right now?
Okay. So I'll start off by just doing without the voices, and like it'll sound like this right now. It's really tinny and pretty like mono or like really close to each other. It's not as wide. So if we give this a lot of unison or voices, it's gonna start to sound like a lot fuller. So I'll give you, here's gonna be another example. So you can hear like a lot more stereo, and it's like really a lot more surrounded, the sound. And here what I usually do after this is I put one, so now we have two, we're using two wavetables for a reason, because I keep one on like the same octave, and I also I move one of the wavetables to another octave right here. So this gives like a bigger sound and like also in pitch too. So it's, I feel like in a sense it's a little, it gives a lot more color into it from what I've, or like how I describe it. So here's an example of that. So it adds a lot to the top end, and it makes the sound a lot more fuller. And a quick tip, if you're doing like unison and stuff like that, make sure you have the detune below 50% or somewhere around that, because if you do a little bit too big, like if you do like over 50%, the sound starts to like it starts to lose its kind of like key. I would say it gets a little bit dirty in a sense. I'll give you an example. Yeah, it's not like as pleasant sounding, but if you put it around 50 or below 50, which I usually do, it gives that, you know, I feel like that like good ratio or good, you know, good area where it's like really clean and like really like it's in key and stuff like that, and it feels like it's meant to be in there. So after that, that's kind of like the basic. Like this is, to be honest, you can just use these two wavetables and like these two things. That's all you really need for a basic saw wave. But you know, many people really go a little bit more and beyond. So I'm just gonna start off by adding more stuff onto this. This is just the basics, and most people just start just adding on from here. So another thing, I think, you know, the first kind of thing that you might want to do is add a sub oscillator. So this just is like really simple oscillator that only has basic shapes. So you can't really do too much to it, but I like to sometimes add it because it gives a different kind of color or like texture in a sense. I usually use this square shape and have it one octave up and keep the volume around 50%. And that gives a little bit more sharper sound, or like kind of like a noticeable texture in sound. So I'll give you a quick example. It's a little bit.
What is it
sometimes hard to
oscillating?
hear.
Uh,
Oh, on the
I
sub.
don't know if that's a weird question. I'm not familiar with serum, but
Oh, it's kind of like a. When I say like an oscillator, it's kind of like a machine that tries to reproduce like a certain shape or like a waveform. It's kind of, I'm not sure how to describe it. I'm sorry on that, but it tries to it uses shapes, and like it kind of like tries to use that shape and like make sound out of it. I guess it's kind of like the heart of everything. That's what I mean by when I say
interesting.
oscillator. But I'm not really too knowledgeable in that, so I'm sorry if
Yeah,
I
I
can't
think
give
that's
like a really good answer. But I think
a
that's
pretty
like, yeah, that's like the closest I think I can describe it as. Yeah. So here's also a sub oscillator, yeah, and we just added the square wave to it, and it sounds like this. Here's without, just a quick check, quick, you know, difference. It's a little bit different, but I like to sometimes add that. It's hard to notice, but I feel like it still adds a lot more presence into the mix. The next thing I would do is go to my effects tab right here. This is all the effects. And if you have Serum, there's this thing called hyperdimension. So this is just like a filter kind of thing, and I feel like it really changes like the texture to what kind of sound that you want to recreate and stuff like that. Now it adds like a little bit of taste, I think, from like how I feel of using this. I would usually keep the rate to none because that's kind of that moves the like phases around and stuff, and I don't really want to. I'm not really sure what it really does, but I usually mess with the detune because this really changes like the sound as a whole, and I kind of really like this. And I'll also keep the mix around 35%. And this is the sound now. It's kind of, there's kind of like a cone shape, I think, how I describe it. It adds just a lot of taste into it, and it's really personal preference if you want to add like a hyper or a dimension in it. And yeah, after that, what I would usually do is add some compression and do multiband compression. So you usually click on the compression tab and you go to the multiband tab, and you want to make sure you check that. This gives like the multiband compression. From here, I just usually change the threshold to be a little bit higher. I usually look at this graphic, just make sure that it's kind of like around this area. Maybe the brown takes like around 70% of the screen. And here's kind of like the difference with multiband compression and not. So here's multiband compression, and here's without. So it really depends if you want to use it or not. In my sense, I kind of like to use it because it pushes the sound away a little bit to give a lot more, room for other instruments. I feel like if you don't use multiband compression, the sound's like really like in front of your face kind of feel. So I usually mess around with multiband compression and add like, put it in the background a little bit in the sense, but have like that strong sound of walls coming through the instrument. So yeah, and if you want to mess around a little bit more, you also have like this ratio tab, which I'm not really sure what it does, but it does change the sound a lot. And this is up to your really preference right here. I usually keep it around 1.8 to 1. I'm not really sure what it means, but I really like the sound when it's around here. So after that, we have kind of like our basic, pretty modified Supersaw. After I put these effects, I usually add some noise to it. So this noise is just really to help make the sound a lot more fuller. So what it really does is just like adds, kind of like fills in parts where the Supersaw cannot usually really do. So I just usually add noise. I use the stock that it comes with, or like the first preset that it comes up with, which is AC hum #1. And I just make sure the sound is around 30%. Depends on how much you want to hear it, but I usually have it on 30%. I feel like that's like a good place. Here's difference with and without sound, and I'll start with the noise. And here's without. It adds a lot to the top end, and I feel like sometimes it's good or not. It's good because I kind of want the sound to be really full, but sometimes I sometimes take it off because I just want it kind of like kind of changes the texture too. So it's up to your choice, but most of these things will be up to your choice, but I rather have noise on for most of it. So yeah, this is the basic Supersaw. So now I'm gonna go through like different variations that you can do with this, and I think many kind of things that artists do with this Supersaw and like how they change it. So I think one thing a lot of artists do when they're making their supersaw is to add kind of like this pitch bend. So let me see if I have like an example. Yeah, so this is going to be, it's going to be flickering a little bit, but bear with me. You can add, many artists kind of like just add like this pitch bend in the beginning of their supersaw, like this, which it like brings it up a little bit. So I'm going to show you how you can do that too on the serum without having to, if you don't want to automate it every single time, there's a way to do it on serum itself. So you go to your matrix tab. I'm not really knowledgeable on all these things, but I just remember it. So I can't really like explain it too much. So what I usually do is I try to usually use this LFO1 as like my graph to show how I want the pitch to bend really. So I go to source and I click LFO1 because I want to use it. I want this to be the kind of like the table or like the shape that I want it to modulate in. And I do amount. I go negative amount because, well, I want the sound like the pitch to go, low to high when I want to start my supersaw. So that's why I pick negative here. And then for the destination, it's like the thing that I want to change or thing that I want to utilize with like the LFO shape or the LFO table. So I go to global and master turn. So I'm not sure why they call it master turn, but master tune, but this is the thing that helps modulate the pitch or move the pitch around so you can hear it like high and low. And make sure your type here is just semi. I'm not really sure what's this one called, but you want to make sure that it's only just half an arrow. That's going to help out a lot. And for the aux source, I usually pick macro 1. This makes it so that, if you want to turn on the pitch bend, you just have to keep this at 100%, and it will automatically do the pitch bend, or it will start doing the pitch bend. So after I finish all that, you want to go back to your LFO table, and you want to pick envelope. Envelope just quickly means it just means that when you start playing with your MIDI, it just happens only once, and it only activates once after you press it, and it doesn't like repeat. So you kind of do need that for that. Yeah, after that, I just have this kind of triangle shape here, and I just mess around with it, and it'll automatically just have the pitch bend from the song. So just gonna do a quick example here. So I'm gonna do it a little bit slower so that you can like hear like an audible difference with it. Make it really slow, so it's gonna sound weird, but I'm just gonna show you that it works. Yeah, so that's how you do some pitch bends. I do see it a lot in like many artists, so if you want to kind of like utilize it, that's the way. So I'm just gonna put it back to a quick position. I think another thing that a lot of artists do is like make that kind of wub sound with the supersaw. So I think from my experience, I say that this is kind of like really future bassy, because I feel like future bass, you have that a lot of wub wub kind of sound that comes out. So what I usually do for that is, there's 2 ways to do it, but I'm just gonna do one way that I really like, and it's easy to do. So you take one of your LFOs or wavetable thing, LFO thing that you want to use. Now you just assign them to the levels, or how loud thing, kind of module thing. So I just usually, what you do is you just click on the LFO2 and you just drag them to the levels. So that will be modulating the volume, and I usually just drag them so that this green part goes around 70%, and do that for each one of these noise creating kind of things. Well, like, yeah, volume knobs. do them for each of them. So I'm just going to quickly bring this 70 for each one. This one I had it at 50, so I'm just going to bring it up to 50. And this one and the noise I had it on 30. Sorry, so I'm just going to bring this up to 30. And from here, what I usually do is I just bring one of the points up here, and this should now modulate the volume, which gives you that wub kind of sound in future bass. So, for example, this is kind of like, this is how it's going to sound like. Yeah, and I feel like you hear a lot of this sound in future bass songs, and like I know you can use it in other kind of genres too. So that's how you make one of these wub kind of sounds. Yeah. Another way you can do it quickly is I'm gonna use LFO 2-3. I'm just gonna take off everything right now because I'm gonna do it a different way. So another way you can do it, make that kind of wub kind of sound, is using this filter tab right here. So these filter tabs basically are EQs that are pre-made, and you can just kind of mess around with it. So if you're going to use this kind of way, you want to make sure that you have the filter on, make sure you're on MG low 12. I like to use this one because I feel like it makes the best wubs. Or yeah, you can also use different ones, but I feel like the best ones that you can recreate is with MG low 12. You want to make sure that all these kind of A, B, and an S, which is oscillator A, oscillator B, noise and sound, sub oscillators are clicked on, because this means that it's going to go through here after everything, and this just activates that, or like notifies that everything needs to go through the filter. So after that, what I usually do is kind of make the similar shape on a different LFO right now, right here, and you drag this to the cutoff. So you want to make sure that it's like one-sided. Right now you see it's kind of like both sides. So what I do is you go to the matrix, back to the matrix here, and just click on this thing, and it should turn back to like one-sided. I'm not really sure why it's double-sided in the beginning, but yeah, that's how you fix it. And I keep it around 80, 80% here, and this is also gonna recreate kind of like a whoop kind of sound. So I'm gonna play an quick example here. There are some like noticeable differences, and I feel like they're kind of two different things that you can do. This volume one obviously has like a lot more top end. You can hear a lot more top end, and I feel like there's a lot more energy to it. But I feel like if you want to make some low key kind of stuff, kind of like sound, you can just put it on a filter, and it makes like a different kind of sound. Yeah, and I think that's about it for variations of different supersaws that you can do. And I'm just gonna do now. I'm gonna go quickly talk about how you can layer this and make it a lot more powerful. So one of the things I would usually do is, after making one of these kind of like supersaws, I like to make another variation of it. So I'm just gonna make another serum tab and try to add the sound together. So let me see. Just gonna quickly take this. Gonna make another new one. Oh, new pattern, and I'll put this in here. Stop that here. So what we really what we have right now is, for example, it's gonna sound like this. Yeah, so what we can do, actually I'm gonna take off the filter. So see if this works. Yeah, okay. you have this, and you know, I could put this in, but I would usually put another serum on top of it because although it sounds pretty powerful, I do feel like it's not as wide, and there's still a lot of places that I could still put in sound, some more supersaws and make it a little bit more fuller. So what I usually would do is I would right click, or I'll just clone from like my first one. Oh, wait, okay. Actually, no. I'm gonna get another serum. Just put it here. Get another serum, and I'm gonna try to recreate the sound again, but using different kind of wavetables. Let me just quickly make this so that this goes into the other serum. Here we go. So I'm just gonna go quickly through. I'm actually gonna use one of the presets that I've made here. Here you go. So what I would usually do is kind of change up the wavetable. So I would usually, I would have had this shape right here, but you don't really have to use this shape because you've already kind of used it on this one. So what I usually do is just change it up for like the second super saw in a sense. So that would give like a different kind of sound and trying to make it sound more fuller, in my opinion. So this is one of the presets that I have right now, and I kind of would use different wavetables, maybe like a different sub oscillator. I would probably have different kind of settings in the hyperdimension tab right here. And you know, this is how this kind of like supersaw sounds. It has like a really different taste into it, and I feel like that's good because it kind of, you know, adds a lot more color into the overall like wall of sound into your supersaws. So after I do that, I would usually kind of, you know, if I have like multiple ones, I would usually go and route them to the same mixer. And from here, let's make a new one. So from here, what I would usually do is I would get a fruity multi-band compressor. This one, do you see this one? Yeah. Do you guys see this? All right.
Yeah.
All right.
We do.
Okay. So I wouldn't. You could also use OTT on your final kind of like mixing stage of your supersaws, but I rather use the stock fruity multiband compressor on FL Studio because it has a lot more flexibility in like how you compress the sound. So I just like to use this a lot more. From here, you just kind of, you know, mess with the threshold most of the time and the gain tab. You want to, that's kind of like what you want to do. I'm not really knowledgeable in like how, like describing how it usually works, but I just usually mess with this threshold, this gain knob, and this ratio knob all at the same time, and just kind of, you know, moving it around to your own taste. So here's like an example of like how I would usually move it. So I can't really hear it too much. So. So all I just did was just move around the threshold, the ratio, and the gain for these two tabs. And yeah, that's you kind of have to. You're just mostly doing it to make sure it's kind of like in your taste more than anything. Because I do feel like a lot of people have different tastes for supersaws and how they really want to sound like in the piece. And yeah, I think that's about it for how I want to do it, or how I would usually make my own supersaws. Other than that, I would just make sure that, you know, you would kind of try to make sure you mix it to your piece. So make sure your supersaws are kind of have some, at least some side chain to the kick, to make sure that you're, because it's like a really loud sound, you want to make sure that you don't drown out your drums. So I would usually kind of make sure to chain it to your kick as like a be careful sign, I guess. You sometimes don't really need to sidechain, but I would I would recommend sidechaining because it really does drown out a lot of your drums. Because it's like a really big sound and it's really loud in a sense. And another thing I would usually do is also make sure to add like a good bass. So let's see. I'm just gonna take out like a quick preset that I've made. I'm gonna make sure that you use a good bass or like a really fat bass. How I describe it. So this is kind of like the usual bass that I layer with my Supersaws with. It's really I would say in a sense like really present too. It has like a lot of presence and at the same time like a lot of low end to help fill up the sound. And I feel like using these two shapes right here, which is both in the basic shapes wavetable folder. One's just a sine wave, one's just a saw wave, one's kind of like a square wave. That square wave that's kind of like moved to the side a little bit with the octave down right here. Just by doing that, I feel like it helps blend in with the Supersaws and also give like a really decent bass sound. So here's an example. Yeah, so let me just let's try quickly placing it in the Supersaw that we already made. So just quickly do this. Okay. I'm gonna quickly put it in my bass serum. Yeah, so I feel like it just really adds a lot more stabilization and like kind of like the Supersaws and how I would describe it. But yeah, I feel like using these shapes for my Supersaws for the bass just really adds that kind of stabilization and makes the sound a lot more I don't know, full, because now you have like the bass and now all the high end is with the Supersaw. So yeah, so I made few presets and I'm gonna post it also on the chat of the Discord if you ever want to use the ones that I made. They're really basic, but I feel like they help. For beginners, I think it's just really easy to just use all these like Supersaws that's in your expense without having to do too much sound design, like this one that I made for y'all. So make sure you go check that out too. I'll just post it on the chat soon, I guess, or yeah, like when I'm finished in explaining this. But yeah, I guess that's kind of it. Yeah, I think that's the basics of Supersaws and on Serum. So if any of y'all have questions, comments.
Yeah, I guess I had a little bit of a question. What are your like tips for using like MIDI? I guess like how like specifically like spacing out notes, like do you space them out more towards the top? I've heard that one. Or like I guess just like how much spread do you use?
So I personally don't really spread them out in a sense. I don't really do like too big of a spread out. I just usually use the chords. Like I usually keep them really tight or like just like their generic chord kind of spacings. So like right here, I'm not sure. I don't really do like a big voice spacing kind of thing. If you
Gotcha.
were to do if I were to do some, like I sometimes do it, but if I were to do some, I would usually play like the chords by themselves, and I would take this third part or like the middle part from the first and like the fifth, now I would usually play them or like move them an octave higher. So if this is like A sharp 4, I'll bring them up to like A sharp 5. I feel like that helps. Let's see. Here we go. So that's kind of like that's like the only thing I would do for voicing. I'm not like a really big fan of like moving it all around, but for what I do, I would just usually move the third one or just keep it in its normal spacing. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Anything else? All right.
I guess like, why does your serum look so cool?
Oh, it's like there's like this new skin that from like it's from the company, and if you update it, it's like it's in their skin folders, and it's one of their newest ones. And, you can just change
Oh,
it
sweet.
if you click on serum, like click on the skin. It's called Prometheum. Yeah, and I
Nice.
just keep it on this because I like it. I like this new
Yeah.
UI. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
If there's nothing else, then I'll just post my preset pack on the
Sweet.
chat, I guess.
Yeah, thanks for walking us through that.
No problem. Yeah, if anyone else has like a question with Supersaws, I'm not as knowledgeable, but I feel like I do have some knowledge. So like, if you guys can just send me a message. I don't know, through DM or something. I don't mind. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for going through that. We'll have the recording up soon, right?
Yep.
And
Alright.
so if you want to go through that and recreate all the steps, yeah, you can use that. And I guess I don't have that many announcements, except there's one pretty big one. Next week we have a guest artist, WMD. If you look him up on Spotify, he's the one with like a lot of listens, not the one with not very many listens. So yeah, I'll drop the link to that, but I'll make a more formal post later. And yeah, thanks Sean and Carter for working on the stems for the Beag collab. Yeah, so that's still happening, but I guess no one here is up next week. But yeah, I'm excited. Besides that, I don't think we have anything. Yeah, if anyone wants to hang out for the next few minutes, you're definitely welcome to do so. I'm gonna go eat dinner though, so
Alright.
Alright.
yeah, thanks for coming, guys. I'll see
Thanks,
y'all
Masa.
next week.
Alright. See you.
Yeah, thanks, Masa.
No problem.
You.